When you're making your YouTube videos, I'm sure you know how important the video quality is to the enjoyment of the viewer. But how important is the audio quality? In this video, you're going to learn about audio recording for YouTube, why it's so important to get great audio quality, and how to set things up and produce your videos so that the audio quality is the best that it can be. So to start things off, let's do a little test. Let's compare this piece of video where the audio quality is rubbish, but the video quality is good, and this video where the video quality is bad, but the audio quality is good. Now, which did you prefer? Now, for certain videos, the video quality is paramount, especially when there isn't much talking at all. You might be having just some backing music. But for a lot of videos, the audio quality can be even more important than the video quality. So talking head, educational videos, your viewer really wants to hear a quality recording. It just gets grating and annoying, and it comes across as less professional if the audio quality is bad. It's harder to convey that professionalism and convey emotion. Some people even watch YouTube videos just in the background, and they're not watching all the time, they're listening all the time though. And it's really important to have a clear, warm and intimate sound, especially for voice recordings. So today we're firstly going to talk about recording, how to get the best recording of your voice possible. And then we're going to take a look at the post-processing, have a look in the video editing software, how we can edit and mix and affect that audio recording to get it sounding the best that it can. So first of all, let's talk about the room you're recording in, because when you record yourself speaking, you're not just recording your voice, you're recording the room as well, what your voice sounds like in the room. So picking the right room to record in can really affect the outcome. And I know you might not have the option of where you can record. You might have only one place in your home that's available to record in. But if you do have the option, then try and opt for somewhere that's smaller and has a lot of soft furnishings, something that's going to dampen the reverb, that echoiness in the room. And also where you can avoid background noise if possible, the sound of appliances and things and next door neighbors, whatever. So I know a lot of YouTubers record in their bedroom, and that can actually really work quite well because they're normally one of the smaller rooms in the house, and they have the bed in there, which dampens a lot of that roominess, the echo, the reverb. You don't want to be recording in a giant office or a big dining room that's very echoey if you can avoid it. Then next, you want to consider acoustic treatment. Before you think about microphones at all, how can you make that room, especially if you don't have a choice of what room to record in, how can you make it sound more professional, dampen that reverb, make it sound more dead, so to speak. If you have some money to invest, you can think about getting these rock wool acoustic panels designed for recording studios and get them behind your recording position and in front and to the sides ideally. But if you don't have a huge budget, you can use the foam wedges like the ones you see behind me. I use a mixture of both because I'm recording in here as well, recording music and mixing. If you get thick ones and you position them correctly, they will really help. They will deaden that sound. They're not perfectly frequency balanced like some of the more expensive ones, but they do the job. And if your budget is low, then they will help dampen the room sound. If you're streaming on your computer, you might consider putting some on the front wall behind your speakers as well. And then let's talk about microphones. There are three main microphone options that you're going to be choosing between. The first one is just whatever's built into your camera or phone if you're recording off your phone. If it's a phone microphone, it's not going to sound great, basically. If it's built into a camera, again, it's probably not going to sound great, but some cameras, some more expensive ones, do have nicer microphones in. If you need to buy a microphone though, for your streaming, for just positioning in front of yourself when you're talking, then you're probably going to be choosing between either a condenser microphone or a dynamic microphone. This is an example of a condenser microphone. It's an Audio-Technica 2035. Now, condenser microphones are a lot more sensitive. They're great for instrument recording and for picking up large groups of people and really sort of detailed voice. but they also pick up more of the room sound. They have more of a kind of long range to make it easy to understand. So they're going to pick up more of that sound that's going on outside. And yeah, if your room is not ideal, if you can't acoustically treat it, or it's just not a great room to be recording in, but you have no choice, then a condenser microphone is not a good option, basically. It picks up a lot more of the room sound. Now, I edit podcasts, and a lot of podcasters choose to use condenser microphones like the Yeti Nano, for example, because they were recommended them, or they got a good deal or whatever, because there are a lot of cheap microphones are condenser microphones. But they're not always ideal. I get these recordings that are really sort of echoey. They don't have that intimacy. And even if you spend a lot of money on a condenser microphone, it still might sound worse than a dynamic microphone if you're not using it in the right situation. So a dynamic microphone, it's a lot more kind of direct. It picks up more just what's in front of it. For example, well, I'm using a Shure SM57 at the moment. You can hear it's very direct and warm and intimate. And the Rode M1 as well is another example of a dynamic microphone. So if you're going to have your microphone in just one position in front of you, you're not going to be moving around. You don't need to record multiple people, and you don't have an ideal recording space. Or even if you do have an ideal recording space, I still recommend a dynamic microphone, to be honest, for voice. You can go for one of those two that I recommended just there, or something like a Shure SM7B sounds fantastic. There is a reason why it's used on most professional high-end podcasts. It's a dynamic microphone, it sounds awesome, and it's really great at isolating just the speaker's voice. But if your room does sound great and you are sort of moving around recording different things, multiple people, for example, then you know, the world is your oyster. Go for it. Try some condenser microphones, because if your room sounds good, then your recording should sound good, as long as everything's positioned correctly and mixed correctly, which we will go over in the next parts. And then for positioning your microphone in front of you, you don't need it super close. You want to keep it suspended off the desk, ideally. I know some microphones like the Yeti Nano have those sort of built-in stands, but if you tap the desk, it's almost certainly going to pick that up. So if you've got a mic stand or a boom arm, then that's ideal. And then you want to keep around about 2 hand widths between your mouth and the microphone. And please use a pop filter. You can also go for one of these windshields as well. But if you don't use one, then the microphone is probably going to be picking up these windy plosives, P sounds, and certain other words as well. It's going to pick up those horrible windy sounds. So they're really cheap. Make sure you get a windshield. And then when it comes to actually recording, when you set your levels, make sure they're not too loud. I know some worry about the recording level being too quiet, and if you've got a poor quality microphone, that can be a problem, or if you're recording in really low settings, a low bit rate. But you want to keep that meter around the middle, probably going into the yellow if you've got a kind of typical green, yellow, red VU meter where you're setting the levels to record your audio. It doesn't have to be as loud as possible, because if you set it where it's sort of almost peaking, almost hitting that 0 dB mark at the top of the meter, if you talk loudly in a certain section, it's going to clip where it hits that 0 dB mark and makes this horrible distortion, and it can be very hard to get rid of that. So when you're setting the levels to record, keep it so it's peaking at around sort of -10, -12 dB. And if it doesn't have decibels on your meter, then just make sure it's a solid signal, but it's well away from that red. Okay, so once you've recorded your video, you'll be in your editing software. I'm using Vegas Pro 16 here. I've just recorded a little clip of me speaking just to demonstrate what we need to do after recording. Now, to be able to do this, you need a piece of software that can split the audio and video, most likely, and one that will allow you to do stuff to your audio track. So some of the free software, you might not actually be able to do anything to the audio track, but most good pieces of video editing software will allow you to process the audio separately. So when you're editing your video, you're going to be making all your cuts, putting everything how you want it, but you can also consider editing the audio separately. So for example, let's just pretend there's some video up there. If I hit play and editing, okay, here. I want to cut those lip smacks out because they're kind of horrible. Obviously, we can't just cut that out and move that back because then the video relating to that will move as well. And if you've got your video edited how you want, then you might not want that. If you do, that's fine. Then you can just delete the audio and video in that section. But if not, then you can cut that audio piece and just bring the gain down. Normally, you can silence or mute audio separately from the video in your video editor. So you can consider getting rid of those nasty noises if you've got... well, if you're coughing or anything like that, you'll probably just cut that whole section of the video out anyway. So, but any little kind of extra lip smacks or noises next door, you can just try and cut them out separately to help. But once we've done that, once everything's edited and in place, you can also consider doing a bit of mixing on the track. So in Vegas Pro, I can add track effects. So automatically, I've got the noise gate on there, the EQ, and the compressor. Now, most microphones, even if you have a really nice microphone, most microphones aren't going to give you perfect recordings sounding exactly how you want them. Most of them will need a little bit of tweaking because they're designed to give you a balanced recording, but a balanced recording isn't necessarily what the listener finds most enjoyable. So one thing you can do with pretty much all your recordings is add a high pass filter, which means basically cutting out the lows. So if you've got an EQ in your video editing software, you can find that bass and cut all the frequencies below, say, 60 Hertz. Hello everyone, this is a test recording so we can practice doing some editing and mixing. Doesn't really make it a difference at all because that's just the really low sub bass, that kind of rumbliness that we just don't need in there. But as well as that, you might find a lot of kind of boxiness and nasaliness and some of that room reverb in the mid-range around sort of between sort of 300 to 700. So if we sweep that around while we're listening, that EQ band. Hello everyone, this is a test recording so we can practice doing some editing and mixing using Vegas. 450 Hertz on your EQ plugin. I'm just going to bring some of that down as well. Let's compare the two now. Hello everyone, this is a test recording so we can practice doing some editing. Kind of smoother and it doesn't have that boxiness to it. It does sound nicer. Let's brighten things up a little bit by adding a bit of a shelf on the top end too. Hello everyone, this is a test recording so we can practice doing some editing and mixing using Vegas. Yeah, just a couple of dB at the top there, a high shelf. It just emphasizes things. It makes things sound a little bit more crispy. Too much and it's going to sound sibilant. Those S sounds will sound very harsh, but a little bit and can make things sound really, really nice and clear. Yeah, so just those simple little EQ tweaks can really help. Even if you've got a bad microphone, ideally you want to get it right in the recording stage. You don't want to have to fix everything in the mixing stage. But if you don't have much of a budget, even doing things like this can help make a poorer microphone sound a little bit better for you. And then also we want to put a compressor. If you don't know what a compressor is, it's basically reducing the volume. Once your audio track goes over a certain threshold, it will push it back down. It basically evens things out so you don't have certain words jumping out in the listener's ears. So what we want to do, we want to set the threshold so only when the voice gets loud, it's reducing the level. Hello everyone, this is a test recording so we can practice doing some editing. You can see that reduction meter there. Hopefully your plugin has that as well, or you can just use your ears. once that starts reducing at those louder bits, so you can see we've got a big waveform there, so it should reduce the level on that one, but not for some of the quieter bits. Hello everyone, this is a test recording, so I've set the threshold so that only those louder bits are going over it, and then you can see that it's reducing the level. And then this amount, you might see this as a ratio on your plugin. If we set that to maybe 2 or 3, it's going to reduce 2 or 3 decibels for every decibel that it goes over that threshold. So not a huge amount. We don't want it to sound really obvious and squashed, but just to help things sound a bit more balanced. And then to finish things off, if you have a master bus, or you might see it as an output meter, something like that in your software, you can also add effects to that as well, which is going to affect the entire, all of the audio in your video. So what I want to put on here is called a limiter. So we've got a limiter here. And what that does is sort of like a compressor, but it's a bit more, it's a bit more tough with the audio. It's going to completely stop it from going over a certain level. And I'm going to set that at -1 dB, which means none of the audio in this video that we would hypothetically be editing is going to go over that -dB mark. So it's definitely not going to be clipping. If you've recorded the audio too hot and it's clipped, then it's not going to fix that. But this will stop it from going over a certain level when we render the video. Hello everyone, this is a test recording so we can practice just to make sure that it's not going to clip. And you can also use this to increase the overall level as well, but I'm sure you'll be doing that within your tracks if you need to change the level balance. So now we know why audio is so important in YouTube videos. You know what kind of gear you need and how to set it up. And we've also gone over how to improve that audio after the recording as well. If you have any more questions, if you want me to go into more detail about the kind of gear that you might need or how to get things set up, anything like that, just leave a comment in the comment section below and I'll jump in to help out. And for more tips and tutorials on how to get great audio recordings and mixes and masters, then hit that subscribe button. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.